So again, good evening to all. And for this, please be reminded pala tomorrow is our holiday. So we already have discussed if you are going to click this one, we are already done with this. So there are 2 videos here to review of what we have discussed previously and to have a recap of everything that we have discussed. I-preview lang sana ako ni ha. Sa akin ay preview ani. Ito. Well. I'm lost.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. So, kumusta naman ang inyong mga research? Here. Hindi rin dapat ang preview. Okay. So, let's just have an attendance before anything. And okay, so going back, as I have said, we are already done with writing the research. And if you click this one, this is what you're going to see on the following videos. No? And so to wrap up, this is just a summary of what we have discussed one by one last time. No? And after that, I'll be asking you about your study or about your researches or whatever clarifications you want to address, no? And for this is just actually a summary of the discussion that we had, no? And this is about preparing a manuscript which is basic guide for beginners. So again, writing the abstract section is actually a brief summary of the paper or mini version of the paper. So in the abstract, lahat talaga makikita mo na ang lahat ng dapat malaman, no? The purpose of the study, the methods, the result, and the conclusion in brief sentences. So last time may pinakita ko mga examples, no, in the abstract at saka sa review paper and then sa research study. So there are also some things to consider before or during writing. Una is maklaro ba? A well-designed study is easier to write. So kung alam mo yung dapat methods mo, so that mas easy magsulat if you know the different parts at ano yung mga methods na gagawin. And a good review of relevant literature. Kaya yung sinasabi ni Gab na mag-research sa daan, no, o mga topics and so on, because you cannot really think of the best for you or chosen ni mo nga topic unless sa iganga rin nga, unless you are going to research or search the whole literature, no? That's why it's called literature review. And the data have been analyzed already and summarized. So if you're going to conduct, since proposal pala ang sa stage ninyo, and later on, if you're going to conduct that, you cannot also make a report easier if your data is not analyzed by statistics or even summarized na naka-table na siya. That's why before yung pinakita kong example, may mga table 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 na ganon. No, mga, it's not the raw data pa ha, summarized na yun. averages of all the each treatments. Then settle the authorship as early as possible. For example, dalawa kayo nag-conduct ng study or ng research. So, who should be the first author and who should be the second author? Or kasi kung mag-isa ka lang, no worries kasi you'll be the one. And if ever ikaw lang, like and then you will subject or you're going to submit that right up to me as your critic or editor, so I can also be part of the author as a reviewer, or yung panel niyo can also be part of the authorship, not unless they you have asked their consent not to or to be included. So hindi pwedeng maging co-author ako ng walang consent, at hindi rin pwedeng hindi sila isali without their consent. Like for example, if if ayoko maging part doon, so hindi niyo rin pwede na isali ako, or if yung ibang panel. And if they also want to, so you should ask their consent na, ma'am, isasali ko kayo sa authorship. So, but anyway, in every thesis talaga, in some schools, the main authorship belongs primarily to the first author should be the you no kayo na kayo talagang first author na nagsulat, and usually the second author or the last author are the panel members. But then if dalawa kayo, kasi it so happen na in other schools, there are ang thesis nila are group, no? So and in the world of authorship or in the world of research, merong ranking ang first author, second, third, and fourth. So may katumbas yan. So it should be discussed within the group kung sino yung karapat-dapat na maging first author, second, and so on. And select the appropriate journal. So kanina tinanong ni John Paul if anong format na gagamitin. So any format lang talaga, no? Either APA or MLA, but then yung binigay ko na mga sample journals, they also require their own format. So it's better na you use their format as early as possible. So before we proceed, let me just check again the attendance kasi we are already 12. Okay, so again, so those are the 5 considerations or things to consider when you are writing. Okay, going back to, so the next would be writing your introduction. So abstract are usually the last one who is finally done. No, kasi you cannot have abstract if you don't have the result yet or the conclusion yet. So the first thing actually is done in the different parts ay yung literature review or writing the literature review. So these are the guides on how to do your review of literature, which will eventually be your review paper, which is the main paper that you're going to submit. Ito yung pwedeng i-publish. Yung research proposal, hindi pa pwedeng i-submit yun unless meron na siyang results. But in this case, we can have the review paper. So by the way, let just me clear this out na kung anong topic ninyo, yun na yung both for review of literature at saka research proposal, although magkaiba sila, para hindi na kayo, wag na kayo magpaiba-iba ng topic para hindi na kayo double job, no? Para hindi na madaming i-research. So what is a literature review? Is it the same with review article? So when we say literature review, it's a critical, constructive analysis of the literature in a specific field through summary, classification, analysis, and comparison. That is why when, sino nga ba yun? I think that was Mark. Nung nag-submit siya ng kanyang paper, yeah, I know. Sorry. So, nung nag-submit siya ng meron ng review literature. So, in one article lang siya lahat, walang subtitles. So, in a review paper or a review literature, kailangan na may mga subtitles. Kasi, although this is our summary, but it should be classified by thought. No? So, kaya kailangan naka-under siya every subtitle. And then there should be analysis. You just don't copy paste, no? You make your own version or your own idea how this knowledge are occurring. So you comment as an author kung what happens. So what happens with this research outputs, and then you compare whether they agree, all the results agree with one another, or does it contradict within your own idea. And then a scientific text relying on previously published literature or data. That's why you have to do research, library research, internet research, kasi this should only be based, or although not purely based sa literature, published na literature, because you can also have personal communication with someone who has the experience in that field. No? So you just write personal communication. So what it is in a literature review or a review paper. So if it is the same or not, so definitely there are actually one. No, if you insert the literature review in the proposal, that it's the literature review, but then you can also publish it along with a different abstract and conclusion. Then it becomes a review article or review paper. So this usually has the overview, hindi na siya maklarify, of current knowledge of the topic. So ano nga yung updates in that kind of topic? No, like the control of eggplant, stem borer in eggplant. So ano na what ano nangyari? Is it still it's still very important crop? I mean pest. And then what is the recent controls that has been done, and what is the recent knowledge or research on that? And then what are the limitation of the previous research in your field? May kulang pa ba, and what are those, and what are the gaps in the previous research in your field? And what if there are unresolved conflicts in the field that still require investigation? And what are few are new developments that are required by the current state of knowledge in your field, in your own idea. No? So that makes you a complete author if you can do that. It's not only copy pasting everything what you have done in your research. So the first step is actually to determine the approach and objective. So ano yung approach mo? So if narrative review or systematic review. If narrative review, you select studies and then compare and summarize based on the author's experience, existing theories. Sorry, hindi siya masyadong clear, no? And models, and results are based on a qualitative rather than quantitative. So that is why in your thesis, when you had your OJT, mostly are narrative lang. So if you're going to conduct a research, you can have the systematic review. These are findings from, yes? These are findings from various individual studies and analyzed statistically by strict procedures and um, analyze data analyzed are used to pull the results of individual studies. So, very scientific kapag systematic review siya. So, that's the first step na approach ninyo. Kaya, when you think right now, so you think na if it's narrative or systematic ang gagawin ninyo. Pag narrative, again, it's based only from literature review or internet, interview research, and book research. But when you do systematic, you have to have published na scientific studies and also actual experiment on that. So this is not so clear. So the second step actually is to organize the literature. Now, and when you organize it, you do literature which are relevant and acceptable. Relevant in your topic and acceptable. Kasi I remember when I was having my PhD at UPLB, they don't want di ba ang pinaka-common nato na gina-research ay mga encyclopedia, Wikipedia. So, they don't accept that as a published literature. No? Usually, mga library catalogs and databases, academic journals and books, scientific journals, and conference proceedings maybe, and specialist search engines can be like Google Scholar and Site Seeker, and government documents like the Bureau of Agricultural Research, the ABAR, and the Philippine Statistic Authority or PSA. Then mga thesis and dissertation. The thesis and dissertation are unpublished articles, but then they are accepted na mga literature. That is why yung mga thesis ninyo, you still need to refine those one in order to become publishable. And mga bibliographies, basta naa pa lang sa libraries, in books, reference lists, and articles. And sometimes there are, especially when you go to ResearchGate, there are books that needs to be paid. But if you contact the corresponding author, they can give you free copy. No? Especially in the ResearchGate. Di ba, gipakita na nako sa inyo ang ResearchGate before? Di ba, So, for narrative reviews, there should be 40 to 60 manageable papers. So, imagine, no? Katunga pa lang. So, that's why napaka makapal yung mga thesis. And for historical, all papers are possible if possible. No? Lahat. And the third step is evaluate the literature. Give a preference to respectable journals. So there are journals that you can see that very rigid talaga yung kanilang publication or yung kanilang review process. But and usually yung mga mamahalin na mga journal, yun din ang parang mataas na reputation. And often reading the abstract or even just a title is already enough if it suits your paper, no? And what else? Target key people in your research area or potential reviewers on your thesis. So, yun yung gagawa kayo ng panel. Usually, if we're going to have a panel for your thesis or for your OJT, usually, kung anong topic mo, sino ang kukunin mo ng mga panel ay yung expert on that field, no? So that should be the correct na method. And type your notes as soon as you finish readings, which saves a lot of time. So kailangan alam mo kung saan sila, sino ang author ng mga nakasulat na ito. So bago mo gawin, kailangan naka-organize na siya if who's the author of that. And then you just filter. Alam nyo, when you do the proposal and you have your review literature already, later on, matatanggal din yung hindi mo mababanggit sa result of your research. So you just have to filter it. And step 4, identify patterns and trends in the literature. So sometimes there are already published na mga review of literature regarding this topic, and then you will see na may mga patterns and trends, no? And you can add that to your conclusion or mga discussion points. Then identify research gaps and recommend new research areas. For example, in your conclusion, you have said na there's still need of organic ways of controlling the stem borer. So parang ganon, no? Mga critical examination, assessment, and etc. And make an outline or tidy up. Prepare an outline, yung kumbaga para siyang if ever like there are so many authors and then pareho lang pala sila ng mga sinasabi sa result that this foliar fertilizer is very effective. So pwede nyo nang pag-isahin lahat, no? Isang statement and then author 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ganon. So that's how to make an outline or to screen everything para into one. I-group niya, for example, sinong nag-coincide in the study and sino yung mga this did not coincide na mga authors. And then take note, under pala dito, of what your supervisor talks or explains to you during casual talks and meetings. So, usually kung sino yung advisor ninyo, sa inyong OJT lang naman, you will have one supervisor. So, that would be Ma'am Nora Propesio. And so you should always ask as an advisor kasi kung kumbaga if you're going to what do you call that, to publish your output, it would the advisor himself or herself will be automatically the second author if you're the only one doing the research. And then third, fourth are all the panel members. And usually the chair is the last one. So ang pinaka-importante talaga na mga like maybe the main editor, for example. Because there are also studies na kahit hindi siya naging part doon sa creation ng studies, but in the end, siya yung main editor. Parang before siya na-publish, chinek niya lahat. No? So, his or her role is very important and it should be in the end. Siya yung nasa end na although pag mention sa inyo, pag marami kayo, pag dalawa lang kayo, so pwedeng siyang Arado and Untal 2021. No? Pero pag madami kayo, pwedeng Eder, Allen Eder ba ang ano mo apelido? Lance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so by the way, if you're going to have your Zoom account, and please make your name official ha para sa klase natin. Kasi sino pa naman ang pagtataguan ninyo? Okay lang siguro sa Facebook, but as much as possible, you include your name clearly, yung full name, not really full name, but first name and family name sa inyong pangalan para hindi masyadong, kasi ginagamit natin siya for official class. Para dili ko malibog kasi one time wala ko kaila and then I thought mamali pa lang may grado sa inyo, no? Di palpa kaayo. So going back, so your paper is always being criticized and reviewed by asan ako? by your panel members. So step 5, identify research gaps and recommend new research areas. It's also is part of this. In the end is what can you do to ensure that your literature review is what it should be your supervisor expect to be, no? So if these are the comments of your panel and your advisor, so ano dapat ang gagawin mo para ma-meet yung expectation nila? So unang-una, develop a good relationship with your supervisor or mentor. So kailangan mabait kayo in terms of approaching them, no? Then there are, wala naman sigurong terror nga teacher sa RMC, right? Tama ba ko, Steph or John Paul?
Ay, wala, ma'am.
Dili ko matug-an. Ay, kinsa to?
Wala, ma'am.
Steph, ito si Steph. Wala, di ba? Although si Sir Stab siguro or si Sir JP?
Si Sir Panya siguro, ma'am.
Terror siya. As in, hindi siya maduulan na ma-approach. I don't think so. Kasi mura siya kanang butan. So, sometimes it also depends on your attitude to your panel or to your teacher. So talk to them. Don't be too confident. I mean, although okay lang naman confident, but murag ka ng ano ba, kanang because I have actually experienced a lot of people under my advisory because I have been handling dissertation and it's PhD level already, and there are people who are kasi medyo bata man ko na PhD at the age of 31 man siguro. So medyo bata pa na, and then some of my students are already 50s or 40s up at that time. So mas confident pa sila kaysa ako and also so although masyado lang talaga akong mabait, pero in dealing with my students, char, by sure lang ma'am. And then but then you have to talk to them, ask questions and ask feedback always, no? But mind you, there are also teachers who don't want to be always asked, like if they will make you feel so stupid for asking. And I also feel that before, that it's better not to ask them, no? Although sila yung panel, sila yung advisor, murag mahadlok na mo mangutana kay mura magkumangutana ka, wala ka naminaw, wala ka kasabot, inana, no? But then in that instance, if you don't know what to do, you should just be honest na. What you just ask and bear with their kanang reaction. So that is naalagi mga tao ngayon ana og reaction, but then napayuban na, like for example, that for me, although mag-anak na ko sa akong estudyante nga, oh my God, wala gyapon siya kasabot. So, but because I have to be patient with my students, so, but dili sana all no in ana, but it's not sometime, and sometimes also I'm so rude with my students, no? And oh my God, katabian na ako. So, talk to them. Ensure that your time spent with your supervisor is constructive. So, dili man mo magdebate, no? Kasi sometimes you have your own idea na gusto yun mo siya i-prove, i-insist, but you know your advisor will be the one to approve anything anyway in the end. So, just follow them. Update them with what you have done and provide a time frame. So, like what you've been doing now. So, i-update ko kasi baka too late na submission time and then you're on the wrong path or way pala. No? And then Ask questions with things you don't understand. This is very important. And again, talk to your supervisor, become comfortable with them, act like colleagues, no, like magka-level lang kayo if you in terms of knowledge and etc. And remember, your supervisor is also like you, a person, and also not perfect. So there would be time na they can hurt you with comments and suggestions. So just like the same way also na pwede din kayo maging as too harsh for them and too clingy for them, or parang masyado lang kayong dependent. So what can you do to ensure you can write a literature review? Know and understanding yourself, what motivates you and what demotivates you, and how you work most effectively. So kayo ngayon at your level, when I was like as young as you before, motivated kay kung mag-study because I really wanna have my own job, work, and then uh, first jud akong pangarap is mag-drive my own car. So that's why it motivated me to study even if lisod jud no mag sometimes there are times nga na ma-bored ka and then or exhausted ka kapoy na ko. So if you are exhausted, especially in writing, so just take a break no and have a short walk, maybe 30 minutes or 1 hour, or unsa pa na ka ng mga dula ninyo karon dira, di lang pud palabi sa inyong dula. Don't get too distracted like unsa ni club society. So at least karon no wala na kay tay mga too much activities, but although ma-miss jud na to na because maybe mo graduate na lang mo di pa na mabalik ang tanan. But then you are still lucky kasi I've seen your photos na naamoy mga activities before in your group, 'di ba? Tama ba ko? Kamutanan dere. And even when you were still on high school, 'di ba? It's more you will really miss that one kasi the new generation, especially karon yung mga formative like mga kinder, elementary, who knows na di na sila maka-experience of something you have experienced before. So every writing is different starting point, different level support, different outputs. So lahat kayo may kanya-kanyang gusto, may kanya-kanyang topic. So iba-iba din ang inyong ways of writing. So that is why when I check paper actually, and when you eventually become a professor like me someday, when you check paper, you respect their own writing style. Well, maybe you just have to change the grammar, but don't change their thought because it's their authorship. So write frequently, share openly, and don't take criticism personally. So pag sinabing di makabagay nga writer or dili man nimo ni kaya unsa man iyang write up nimo ra man ka ng nonsense. So don't just believe that, no, believe in yourself. If somebody tells you that you cannot do it 3 times and even take a photo and flaunt it, no, i-post dayon sa inyong Instagram, whatever. So going back, we only have 5 minutes. So let's just go back to the same link. So sa results naman, I already have shown you that in the result, we have the summary of the data, but without interpretation. So you just focus on which is higher, which is bigger, and it should be short and concise, and should be always in the past tense. No, kasi tapos na yung result. And when you make your bibliography and acknowledgement, it should be on the third person. Like the author would like to thank the different people for making this paper possible, something like that. So these are your results and discussion. So you state the study's major findings, explain the meaning and importance of the findings, and point out negative result or lack of significance or correlation. So you will see an example of this as we go further. Then discuss result with findings of other researches. So after you present your data and your results, so does this coincide or agree or disagree with other authors that have conducted that research? And then consider alternative explanation. If it's not what is expected, then why? Then state the relevance of your findings. So how can this help the current problem? So we have here what not to do and what to do, and result versus discussion is just that when you do your results, um just you can just enumerate what's in the table, but in an organized form. But in your discussion, you have to say why, how it happens, why that happens. So in your result, avoid redundancy. Do not present the same data in what's in the table and the figure. And do not report raw data values when they can be summarized as mean or percent, etc. So in the discussion naman, over presentation of the results, and this should be avoided, and unwarranted speculation, nagbutbut ra ka, wa kay basis, and bulky ra kaayo, and conclusions are not supported by the data, pataka ra ka conclude ito mao, no? So acknowledge the study's limitation, make suggestion for further research, and state conclusion as clearly as possible for your conclusion. So, and these are just too small na mga, klaro pa ba? Wait lang. Introduction. So, maybe I didn't, na-mention naman ako ng introduction kanina, and wala pang materials and method. Kasi after sa introduction mo, you will have your methods. So in your methods, you should state, because this example is for plant pathology, no? So you will see a example naman, no, in the next discussion on how you do your methods. So these are just, again, you can review this one, and ano pa ba lang nandito? So, and sometimes you cannot, especially if you do the systematic or experimental approach, you cannot really conclude without, like, if even if you do your own setup, but without proper statistics and without proper design, you cannot conclude that it is the result, or it is the scientific, like you cannot say that it's effective or efficient unless the statistics prove it. So I guess yun lang about the wrap up, no? And for the next topic, we're going to talk about the next na, which is conducting research. And by the way, eto, and these are so many pages, but we will just focus on important things kasi it's all the same lang when you do, like, for in text, in this one. This is about EUP pala, so we will discuss this. Ganun ba kan mo 40? Di pa din ni mao ang ano katong baga kaayo.